somewhere. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. City Schools of Decatur is proud of our small neighborhood schools, the joy of children walking or biking to school. One of my favorite things is Community Circle and the incredible programs that we offer in our K-2 schools, be it Spanish, PE, creative thinking, PEIP, and special ed support. But we also have a responsibility to be fiscally sound. The why we're here tonight is to start a discussion. We currently have 831 students across 5 schools with 1,778 available seats. Our schools under 200 students no longer qualify for capital outlay, which helps with the cost of maintaining these facilities. For those who don't know, capital outlay is a reimbursement program through the state of Georgia that helps us with modernization, renovations, and expansions on schools. For example, we're sitting in Beacon Hill. I turned in an application for capital outlay for Beacon Hill and received over $700,000 to help renovate the school this summer. Along with that capital outlay funding, we'll also use SPLOS and will not have to touch any money from our general fund to make the renovations needed here at Beacon Hill Middle School. At Oakhurst Elementary, $487,000 on capital outlay to make renovations at Oakhurst Elementary. With the small amount that we use from SPLOS, we're going to make some major upgrades at Oakhurst and will not touch our general fund. So maintaining these underused buildings without capital outlay is a challenge. But tonight, we're here to listen. Tonight is not about making a decision. It is about listening, hearing from you as we explore how to align our resources with our shared values in support of every child's success. I'd like to introduce Mr. James Wilson from Ed Planners, who will lead us through tonight's discussion.
Good afternoon, good evening, and it is a pleasure to be with you. We have a lot of information to share with you, and it'll take me a few minutes to get through the 17 slides, but it's all informational. It's good information to learn and to know, because our real purpose tonight in this first forum that we're having is to listen, to learn, and put ourselves in a position to respond. It is important for us to hear from you. So tonight's presentation will take me about 15 to 20 minutes. And then from there, the mic is here, which will call you up as you raise your hand and ask to speak, and allow you to do that. And there's good listeners here. There's members of the cabinet, the superintendent. We just heard from Jarvis, myself. I have 2 team members with me here from Education Planners. So as we share information with you, then we will certainly want to listen to you. We're starting on time, and we'll go to 8 o'clock. We have an option, and we'll kind of let you decide a little bit. We have 2 additional rooms, or breakout rooms, after I do this presentation. So, because what we really want to make sure that we do, however many people would like to come to the mic and speak, we want you to be able to do that. And if there's too many people in this room to get around to everyone, then we have 2 breakout rooms that you could go and do the exact same thing. So this is the community forum. This is the agenda. You can see the 4 points. We've talked the purpose. Jarvis has done that as well. We want to talk a little bit about plans. We want to talk about data, and and then we'll, at the end of that data, we'll offer the breakout rooms if it's appropriate. The next slide is, so some of the means for communication. We had a QR code, over 600 responses concerning this were provided to us written feedback. and we appreciate that. It is a very important part of anything that a school district does, is the communication is extremely important. So we put that in place to give you the opportunity to do that. Several of you have responded to me by email, and the board members, and I won't necessarily read a statement from one of the board members, but she wanted to make it clear that there hasn't been a decision made, and we're in a process of learning, listening, and trying to respond and make sure that we do the right decision. So no decisions, while you may have heard something or another, there hasn't been any decision made. Plan A is to maintain a current timeline, and then Plan B is to adjust that timeline, because we've been hearing from you that maybe we're doing this too quickly or too fast. So we want to allow the greater community to engage using potentials of proposed committees. It's important to the school district to have a school safe, school walk zones, transitioning from student support, financial impact, culture and design, and it would require the board to make a final decision later in the school year. So Plan A is to stay with the current timeline. Plan B is to expand that timeline, and that's important to us both and everyone, that we try to do the right thing. Most all of the information that I share tonight is research-based. And this slide tells you, right in the middle, data discovery. Wolford is a consulting firm that does your demographics and your 10-year enrollment study and those kind of things. And we studied what they provided so we could learn from them. We used the Georgia Department of Education, and as Jarvis was telling you earlier about capital outlay, that goes through the Georgia Department of Education. So it's real important that we study and understand what implications it would be to have schools less than 200 and the loss of potential funds. So we use that. The census data we always look at. We look at it all the time. It gives us information. And that's what we use it for. And then, of course, working with the City of Decatur schools, we learn from them. So this slide is very important because it is about data discovery. The next slide simply is referring to one of those 4 data discoveries, and this is the U.S. Census. As you know, it's conducted every 10 years, but you get updates yearly. And it's important because what it is telling us is that the population in Decatur is decreasing, according to the 2020 census. The median age of Decatur is 39.6 years, females 41.6 years. That's coming straight off the census. And you can see the last part of this is currently 71% of the households in Decatur do not have children. And of those households that do have children, 69% are enrolled in public schools. Just data, just good information to know. The same thing here. We look for our data, the demographic, the enrollment projections, we get those from Wolford. Student residence analysis, housing, birth, census. We go get the census data, we go get the live birth data to see what's growing. In a minute, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Atlanta Regional Commission because they give us great information as well. The facility, the capacity, the physical condition, we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Renovation costs, annual maintenance, trying to look at everything that we can look at to try to make and put ourselves in a good position to make good decisions. And of course, the next one is stakeholder feedback. Now, the Atlanta Regional Commission serves the 11 county metro school districts and the 3 city school districts in the Atlanta metro area. And the article was written in August of 2025, where they shared about this metro area. They also say it's a national trend. The population is aging. There are fewer young children coming to school. And so what you find is across the metro area, school districts, all of the city districts and county districts are showing declines. And this is a good example of that. They also, in that article that was dated in August of 25, talk about how Beaufort City and Decatur City some 15 years ago were both growing very fast. But since 2019, and some can be connected to COVID with that, the population, student population, is simply going down. And the Atlanta Regional Commission is really a group that all school districts across the state refer to for information. So as you can see, these are actually, and if you're looking in the corner and it says 2016, that is actually the 2016-17 school year. Because we always refer to, there are two main dates where a school system gets their money. The October FTE count and a March FTE count. And all demographers and all school districts always refer to the October FTE count. So these numbers here are what is sent in to the state Department of Education for 2016-17 school year, and all to the right hand, the 5,260 students is the 2025-26 school year, which is the current. And that has just come out, the October FTE count. We've been waiting on that number to be able to give you accurate information. So you can see there is a decline. The Atlanta Regional Commission and others are simply saying that's not going to change. The next slide is something that the Atlanta Regional Commission also refers to. And one of the things that they warn in their literature is how you can tell if a school system is growing or if a school system is in decline. So if you look with me on this slide and try to follow me, in the bottom left-hand corner in 2012, you would see that kindergarten had 369 students. If you go all the way over to the 12th grade, you were graduating 189. So as you graduated 189 students, you were having enrolled 369 students, which would tell you in 2012 you were a growing school district. But then you can see, and we've marked it, in 2021, that changed. So if you look and with me, and we highlighted it in red, in 2021, kindergarten had 321 students. But the 12th grade, the seniors, had 415, which means you are now graduating more students than you were enrolling. And you see that that trend has continued from 2021 all the way through to current. So if you look at the October FTE count 2025, you will see that in kindergarten, 269 students. And you will see the senior class is 510. So it is only an indicator that the enrollment is in decline. Could it change? Sure. Nationally, they're saying this is a national trend. But this is just one indicator that we use, and also the Atlanta Regional Commission, whose job it is to forecast and predict use. So we get this information from the Atlanta Regional Commission. The Georgia Department of Education requires schools to conduct a census of common data twice every year. And what that is, I just mentioned earlier, and that's the October FTE count and the March FTE count. It's important because that's where you get your funds, state funds. And we always refer to the October FTE count because we believe that is the most accurate count of the two. It's also the most important because it's the first opportunity to receive funds. We try very hard to monitor what's going on in your community. And you can see here as two simple examples of multifamily developments that are occurring currently in Decatur. Winona Park, there's the Village at Legacy Park, and so we watch that because that is a complex that could bring additional students to you, to this school system. So it's important for us to follow that, so we can predict maybe there's going to be additional growth, or maybe not. The same thing with Claremont, where Pope and Land has been hired to do residential developments. Those are the two major developments that you have in the city of Decatur. And we try to monitor that and work with that, because we want to make sure that if an apartment complex or a housing complex is going to bring in a large number of students, then the school district simply needs to be prepared for that. So we wanted to share that with you as we monitor that for the school district. This slide is simply another slide that simply indicates that the elementary has lost 850 students since 2019. And we show you, and it's kind of the same way format that I showed you on another slide earlier. You see the difference from 2019 to 2025. If you look at the 9th through 12th grade, there was large numbers there. There was growth there. They're graduating in the next few years. And what's coming behind that, if you look at pre-K through kindergarten and on through the 8th grade, you see those numbers are in decline. And all I'm doing tonight is providing you with accurate research information. The next slide is very important as well. And you'll hear demographers get up and talk about seats. There's so many seats available for students. So if you look at this slide, you will see we put it together two different ways, but 831 students currently are in K-2 Decatur schools, but there's 1,778 seats. And that's just a way that the demographer describes it. And if you were listening to some of the news that was talking about, currently talking with other school districts, several of them are using seats as an example. It's just a way to articulate the message. So you see that in K-2, in Decatur schools, you are utilizing 47% of what's available to you as seating capacities for kids. This is just another way to look at it, but it's an important way. The next slide is something similar. So what we do here is we talk about Claremont, Glenwood, Oakhurst, Westchester, and Menlo Park, and we share with you the student capacity. We use the state formula from the DOE. This is 2025 FTE for K through 2. We show you the building utilization. We show you the number of classrooms, and then the Georgia DOE instructional allocation is just simply telling you you have more classrooms than you need. So we looked at any angle that we could. We looked at as much data as we could, because we don't want to leave anyone out, and we don't want to provide you with something that is simply not accurate. So we look at it in several different ways. And as Jarvis was saying to you earlier about capital outlay, that is through the Georgia Department of Education. And you do get funds for that if your schools are at an appropriate or a particular size. You have several schools that don't meet those capital outlay funds, research needs. So several years ago, when the SPLOS came about, I think it was in 1996, 97, when that was approved, and that was great funds. But then the capital outlay, which we thought was going to go away, stayed. So it's a good dollar that's available to you if you have the appropriate size schools. The next slide is simply another way of showing it, because we always try to go with the October counts. It's one of two official counts. This is the October 25 FTE count. And it's important to do that because that's where you get your state funds. When you are showing the state how many students you have and what grades they're in, that's where you get, so you have local taxes, but you also have state county taxes. And this is an example of showing how many students are in each school. And you can see, this slide shows you from 2021 to 2025, you can see the reduction in enrollment at each of those schools. And shows by year, kindergarten, first and second grade, and how that's continuing to change. It says the same thing a couple of slides earlier did, is that you're at 47% utilization of your K-2 schools. The next slide is a continuation, but as the second or third slide, I tried to show you the data sources that we use. Well, this slide speaks to Wolford, where they are forecasting your future enrollment. And you can see it's on decline, and it's based on cohort survival methodology. They project overall student enrollment to decrease from 5,219 students in 24-25, some 24% in the next 10 years. So we don't see this recovery. The information that we're gathering through the data sources, we just simply don't see a recovery here at any of our research. Another slide that's important that Wolford did for the school district is a facility condition assessment. And it's good that they do that, because all it is giving the school district an opportunity to really learn what funds it's going to take to keep the schools up. It's like your house. At some point in time, you're going to put a new roof on your house. At some point in time, you've got to fix the driveway or put new HVAC in. It's the same thing with schools. So it's important to have an assessment of each of your schools, whether they're K-2 or the high school or wherever, to know what type of funds it would take to keep these schools functioning to the level that would be appropriate for young people. So basically, it suggests a greater need of repairs and maintenance. The next slide is really important because it simply makes 4 simple facts. The aged facilities, and your facilities are getting old, as all facilities do, are requiring more costly renovations and system upgrades. It's just simply that you're going to have to maintain your facilities. The elementary enrollment of 200 is a requirement from the state of Georgia capital outlay program to participate. What that means is if you have over 200 students in your school, you can apply for capital outlay funds. And I'm going to make up a number. If it takes $1 million to put on a roof, state capital outlay will fund a sizable portion of that if you meet all the requirements. And if there's a school that's under 200, it doesn't meet that qualification. The school system chooses to continue the operation of schools below the minimum size. The schools in question will be excluded from these calculations. And that's an important part because the state capital outlay funds, and that's a process that the school system applies for, and it takes a 3-year process to get those funds. So it's really important because there's a process that's used where the state won't let you participate. But it is a great dollar, it's an important dollar, because it helps greatly with your property taxes and the schools' utilization of their funds to make sure they provide the best service for children and provide the right things for facilities as well as instruction in schools. Fully funded schools will bear the weight and lose earned money to support under-enrolled schools. So capital outlay is extremely important. And like I said a minute ago, when SPLOST came about, we all thought we were going to lose capital outlay because all of a sudden we had a penny tax that was going dedicated for schools. They didn't do that. So the state legislature actually approves bonds every year for the entire state for capital outlay support. A lot of that had to do before, when they did this several years ago, they did this because some of the school districts in the far south had a lot of trouble just finding the tax dollars to put on a new roof. They needed support from the state. And the state came up with the capital outlay projects. We thought we were going to lose that funding when SPLOST came about, but we didn't. So every year, the legislature funds that through state DOE, attempting to know what districts might be doing for roofs, HVAC, school-related things, even school food service areas. An example, to qualify for a roof, your roof has to be 20+ years old. If it is, you qualify for support for that roof based on the year and the age of the roof. That's one example. HVAC is another example. It's only 10 years there, but there's considerable funds that are important for you to, and I apologize for that. I get about 15 strand calls a day. The next slide is, while it says 23, 24, it is this research comes from the National Center for Educational Statistics, and it comes out in 2025. It was worked on 2 years ago, but it comes out now, and it simply shows the highest enrollment and the lowest enrollment. And you can see the highest enrollment, 248 students, and you can see the lowest enrollment, 148. So Winona Park qualifies for capital outlay funds in Westchester and Linwood, Claremont. So we titled this last slide, Designing Schools for Success. The City of Decatur schools have a great reputation, and that's important. And so some of the comments here are simply encouraging the continuation of that. Efficiency and safety of student transportation, obviously that's very important. Feeder patterns to increase stability, very important. Feeder schools create the appropriate enrollment and capacity. The secondary schools, existing boundaries used for school zones, historical significance and community support is important. Balanced enrollment, equitable resource and distribution of resources, student enrollment meets the requirements for state funding. So, there's the information. And so tonight, the first part of this meeting was to provide you with research information. The next part of our meeting, we're here from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, and we have several opportunities, and I think the crowd will need to give themselves an opportunity to break out into 3 sessions. So the rest of our meeting will be for us to listen to you. You have the opportunity to come to the mic to speak, and we will be good listeners. Again, our responsibility here is to listen and to learn from you, and then put the district in a position to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We are here to listen. We will respond, but tonight is a night for listening. So we're going to divide to make sure everyone has a voice. So we have one section that will remain in here, another section inside of the gym, and another section in the media center. Ed Planners, Mr. Wilson's company, will facilitate in each room. The cabinet and I, we will just take down, we'll take the notes. And then there will be a response. All right? So I want to walk this. Yes.
Since we have no questions to react to or provide input on, will you guys answer questions for us?
No, do not do it. What we done tonight is provide the facts of what we're doing. So why this process is happening. So we gave you guys everything that we was gonna look at. And now we're here to listen to you, all of the facts that we present. We don't. Say that one more time.
The plan that was originally scheduled to be submitted on Monday was not submitted. Why was that the case, and did we receive a plan at any point in the year?
So I don't know if everyone heard his question. Let me give him, I'm not gonna give him right because we're gonna mess up our nice process. His question was, why wasn't a plan presented on the website, on over 600 responses were about the speed of this process. We're moving too fast. That's what, overwhelmingly, that's what the responses gave us. We have to listen to them. Overwhelmingly, people saying, we want to provide input. We have to listen to them. Overwhelmingly, people saying, our voices are not being heard. We have to listen to the voices. So tonight, we're here to listen. No decision has been made. You guys see all the data that we looked at. And that's where we are with it. We have the data that we looked at.
That's not true.
Now, we're gonna hear from you all. We're gonna take it all in, and we're gonna respond. We're gonna give our information to the board, superintendent, who will communicate what the next steps are. Remember, option A was continue with the plan, which means the board make a decision on December 9th. Or to slow the process down, to make sure we hear more from the community, to make sure we look at it. It would be impossible for us to say, we see everything that you see, without hearing from you first. So we need to make sure that we show you what we're looking at, and now we need to hear from you all. All right, so we don't want to take up everyone's time. From this table here, you guys will remain in the cafeteria.
We kind of prefer to stay in here. Could you give us the option?
Everybody's gonna hear what other people say.
Yeah, we do not make it.
Feel like everyone has.
Yeah, we're not.
One voice.
We're good.
So I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to fight. We're here to listen.
We'll be orderly.
All right, so I'm not gonna fight. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna have a mic. We're gonna have ed planners go into the media center. We have one team, part of ed planners going to the media center with the cabinet. If you're not able to get your voice heard, we have a QR code that we read through everything that's on there. And if you come to the mic, look at the room, let someone else get their question in or their comment. Remember, tonight we're here to do what? We're not here to have a dialogue and have discourse. We're here to do what? Let me hear everybody say it. Only some people say it. We came here tonight to do what? And what we're going to listen to?
Everybody.
In the same room.
Are we answering questions tonight? Are we responding tonight? No, we're going to listen to 8 o'clock. We're going to high five and hug. And I got to thank my wife while I'm walking in and I'm hungry. So we would give
You're listening tonight.
we would,
What should we expect?
how about we give you a timetable response?
Oh, that sounds good.
Give us an opportunity. We don't know what you guys are going to say. Give us an opportunity to listen. You guys just booked our process. All right? So we're adjusting. So let us capture tonight. Let us go home to our families. Let us meet tomorrow. And then game plan and communicate our next step. Is that fair?
Yes.
We try to. You put me on the spot, man. Leave me alone.
That's what this is
All
for.
right. No more questions for him. He's finished for tonight. So guys, let me get the mic up.
Hold on.
Do not hog the mic like what I'm doing. Do not hog the mic. We are here to do what?
Listen.
To who?
Everyone.
To everyone, not one person.
That's right. Put that mic down. Let's go.
All right, let's put the mic down. Sorry, Mr. Wilson and cabinet, but we do have people in the media center. I'll run the mic. We have people in the media center, and if that gets overcrowded, we'll move to the gym as well. Is that fair enough? I'm gonna be the mic runner to expedite things. If you can move towards the aisle with your questions, and then I'll run the mic. I see he has his hand up first. If you can meet me over here, we can start the process. We want to hear from who? Everyone. Do not pause the microphone.
Hey, just a quick question on the dialogue aspect. I understand listening, we're on a superintendent listening session. I think the problem is lack of dialogue, and there's already been some really good work done on the analytical studies that directly contradict or show flaws in the methodology that the consultant has provided without any response. And my biggest question here is, yes, you're listening to us, but there has been a lack of dialogue in response to a lot of the flaws here. I mean, I have actually quite a few comments on some of the slides here to include things like, you talk about highest enrollment equals the lowest cost per student, but does that actually equate to outcomes? Right? There's a lot of economic related data you can show that don't relate to actual student outcomes, but the problem I have here is the fact that the community here has done some tremendous work on potential impact to tax bases, to flaws in the methodology on enrollment projections. How is that feedback process? How is that dialogue included? I mean, Bernard's here too, so you know those things.
All right, thank you. I'm going to pass the mic. If you do have information to share, documents, PDFs, anything of that nature, the next link that'll come out will have a portion for you to upload the documents as well.
Hi, I'm a former parent of Westchester, and I'm a current parent of Faith, and one of the things that really strikes me is that there's a huge discrepancy between what the city of Decatur is doing and then what the schools are doing. So the city of Decatur gave an immense tax break to people who were 62 or older. So yes, our district is just older. So now we're blamed for that because we're younger. We can't afford the homes that are much more expensive. That's not fair. 2, City of Decatur is saying that they want to preserve affordable housing. I live in naturally occurring affordable housing, Emory Chase condominiums, less than $200,000. I cannot believe that you are thinking of closing down Westchester, which would make our living conditions even harder. 3, we have absolutely no other public space to be in other than Westchester School. Everything south of Scott Boulevard, there's a ton of rec centers, there's a ton of different places to go to that are public spaces. We have one playground attached to this school area. What will we have once it's gone? I want to talk about also the fact that you guys are not really thinking about how to attract people. What you wanted to charge people more by asking people from outside of the district to come and sign up. I'm a former dual language teacher. When I moved into my school in Brooklyn, there were 370 students. 7 years later, there were over 1,000 students and our school was overutilized. There's no justification for not putting any additional programs into some of the schools that are currently underutilized to attract more people. Last point, I know 5 people personally who have taken their kids out of the city of Decatur because their kids could not be serviced by us, because their children needed special education services. We have underutilized schools. We have schools that have a ratio of 1 teacher for 9 kids. How can we explain that we cannot have every kid in our schools? I want all of those questions answered, and then you can show me the plan.
Thank you so much. And my name is Bernard Sarga. I'm a parent of a child of Westchester, but I'm really here thinking about the future of the district and the city as a whole. I want to thank our superintendent in particular for starting this important discussion. And I think one of the things that I noticed right away when looking at the board meetings and the presentation of the board retreat in August and then in October from the consultant is some of the census data, enrollment data is a little bit misleading. And there's more information available at cityschools.com. Analysis this, but just want to highlight two things. The kindergarten class this year, its children were born between September 1, 2019 and August 31, 2020. That is the lowest birth rate we saw for City of Decatur residents in at least 40 years. There was a global pandemic happening during much of that, a lot of other things going on, but the point is, this is the absolute lowest, and since that point, if we finally get to kindergarten, it's gone up every single year. I just got the data today from the Department of Public Health, and it says the birth rate in Decatur, right, is the highest in the most recent cycle, 23-24, that it's been since 2017. Why is this important? Because the population in our district for K-2 fluctuates a lot. It's all dependent on that birth rate. It went up 200 people in a 2-year period less than 6 years ago. Then it did it again. This was right before we built Tally, and then it went down. The fear is that making big decisions like closing the school based on, again, the worst year we had for birth rates in the city, and so a lot of people moving in, by the way, is a big mistake, which might mean we have to reopen the school. Strategic on that. The second thing that I wanted to mention about this, about what we're seeing here, is that there's a lot of options that I think the board and the superintendent have pursued that are worth looking at more. Pre-K, expanding pre-K, building the ECLC. What if we put pre-K back in our lower elementary? Pre-K counts towards that 200 number. Tuition students is another one, which is where enrollment actually came up for the first time in November of 2024 at a board review. Tuition students, I don't know what's going on in DeKalb, but I hear there's an issue maybe in the DeKalb schools. I know a lot of parents who are interested in the high quality neighborhood schools that we have here. Let's pursue that as an option before we talk about trying to, explore all the options on the table, but let's not throw away a chance of doing something really special. Thank you.
Hi everybody. My name is Antonio Escoboides. We're a family with 3 kids here in Decatur. Our eldest one just graduated from college, but we have 2 others. The third one, the youngest, actually we were lucky enough to see her go from the college heights all the way now she's in the 5th grade. So the reason I want to share just a few data points from our family is that we are one of all these families that came here, and I'm sure there are more out there within the city. We are deeply vested in what happens here in the city of Decatur, in the community. I certainly agree with the gentleman who said that people come here in Decatur for primarily, not exclusively, for one reason: the quality of the schools, the education that this system can provide to the kids. And this is an asset that I have a feeling we all, parents and of course the board and everybody, we need to make sure that we present. So I would like to also offer a disclaimer here. I missed the initial part, so I cannot go through the slides. I'm not able to give feedback on or make any critique on the methodology. And second is I'm an engineer, so I do understand a little bit about numbers. So if I look at the numbers, I would say that yes, the numbers that were shown to us tonight do make the point that we have a problem. So yes, I do see the numbers, but what I do not see, I did not see, I have not heard, and I think nobody has heard, is the vision. What is the vision for these schools? We cannot go against the winds of history, how the shifting demographics are shaping this municipality or the state. We cannot, but we can do, I really believe we can do something about our schools. And I will end with one specific suggestion. I do agree with our friend over there. I very strongly recommend the board and all of us to consider what was called tuition students. You all, the board, I feel have a responsibility to realize that this is infrastructure. If you let infrastructure sit, when the conditions change and become more favorable, when you come back to use them, it may cost more. So it is to everybody's benefit to keep these schools operating. And again, I cannot dispute the numbers or the ratios or whatever the state is asking for. But giving the opportunity to kids and families who reside outside the city limits to bring them to their schools will help, or serve rather, in my humble opinion, two goals. Number one, the answer to the question, can we give this great opportunity to more kids outside the city school, outside the city limits? I think the answer to that would be yes. And second, can we accomplish that goal in a financially or fiscally responsible manner, and therefore use this as a revenue generator? That's all. Thank you.
I have one person right here that I make my way up front. The man with the green right here. I apologize, you were next, but you'll be the next person after.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I think I just want to echo it so it doesn't get lost when one person represents this idea that great, thank you for sharing this data and some of the reason, let's say we all concede to this notion that there's a declining trend nationally or in this area. But why? Why are we still only looking at this voting zone points as one option? And at this time, to the vision, we have the Early Childhood Learning Center. I heard the superintendent for session say her why is equity, is wanting to make sure that all our students are served. And I understand that need. And that's what I think all of us are really seeking in this conversation, is to make sure all of our students are served, but not in absence of promoting this one K-2, the 0 to 3 that we are fighting for, and that there's been a lot of false data presented in obtaining that center. I remember seeing slides saying that schools were at 100% utilization during a bond hearing for approval of that bond based on our lower income schools, and here it's 47% utilization. So which is it? It's starting to create distrust, and I think it's important. I understand the board wants to look at these as separate issues, but I think we need to understand that all of us at this time are viewing these issues as linked because of the financial burden that it's putting on this city, and that therefore we're saying a K-2 school, the assumption, again, it hasn't been said, is that it needs to close because it's a burden, or because there's a financial problem. So just tell us what the problem is, tell us what the vision is, and let us help you understand how we can all achieve equity for all of the students throughout the city. Thank you so much.
I guess my comment here is more of a comment than a question. I'm a former Claremont mom, current Tally mom. Is how is this impacting our teachers? I really don't care who's on the board and who's the superintendent. I care about who's seeing my kids every day and what they're teaching them every day. And it's also these teachers have families at home and bills to pay, and the economy's not looking good. So how are we supporting them in the middle of all this? I would like to see more transparency and support of teachers.
I just moved to Georgia a few months ago, and had to, but my employer gave me a relocation opportunity, and my son's 4. He turns 5 in June, and the most important thing, more important than our house, I can fix the plumbing, I can fix electrical, I can't fix what school he's going to end up in. So when we were looking at Georgia, we found Decatur, and so we bought a house in Decatur, and he's he's gonna get to wear one of those orange shirts. It's super awkward if it's not gonna be school and everything. I understand being financially responsible, but I'm also very concerned about the teachers. My mom was a teacher, and I watched her get bumped before. She didn't enjoy it. My parents didn't enjoy that. That was a frustrating summer, we call that. And I also agree that it seems like there's tainted data sets there, and that's just weird. I don't understand how much, I would be very interested to know how much money was spent on that research and what the quality of the output was. I hope we are showing concern for, I just took my kid out of the daycare. He was in for 2 years and watched him say bye to all his best friends. And it breaks my heart to think about. And now there's going to be a bunch of kids at some school who aren't going to be in the same homeroom with their buddies anymore, and aren't going to see the same kids in the classroom. They're going to have to do it all over again at a more important age where they're trying to foster these relationships and trying to develop these bonds at one of the most critical times in their lives, when they are most impressionable. So, that's how I call it up. Thank you.
Hey all, my name is Matt Woodruff. I'm City Schools of Decatur parent. We've got kids 3 years old, one in Claremont and one in Tally. I thought Bernard did a wonderful job of summing up a lot of the conversations that have been happening through the parent group, but I do want to emphasize one piece of that, which is the impact of a global pandemic on the data that everyone just saw, right? So what you just saw was census data leading up to 2019, and what you saw was growth in the K-2s all the way up to 2019, and then a drastic shift from 2019 down to where we are now, right? And as Bernard mentioned, some indications that the population is now turning around. I want to mention that the population of Atlanta continues to grow, the population of Decatur continues to grow. It is not reasonable to draw, I think, a comparison between national birth declines, which happen much more gradually than what we are seeing in those data. I think a clear head looking at those data would ask the question, is it reasonable that in 2019 something significant changed, which changed the trajectory of the K-2s? I think the answer probably is obvious to most folks in this room. Anecdotally, we know that City Schools of Decatur intentionally, correctly tried to protect its students and its teachers, moved to fully remote. A lot of parents chose to pull kids out of City Schools of Decatur. We know that that happened. We know that there have been other concerns within the K-2s that have led to students choosing to go to private schools. There is good reason to believe that all of that hasn't bottomed and that we are at that bottom, right? But here's the point that I wanted to get to. With all of that in mind, right? All of that is data driven, and we can and will show that. With all of that in mind, the decision to close a school has a very real studied academic impact on the children, right? So if there's any question as to whether those data are not being driven by long-term national trends and are instead being driven by a short-term pandemic and a misinterpretation of the data, you're creating an egregious error by responding to that by closing the school, right? Especially when there are legitimate opportunities on the table, like expanded tuition programs, which already exist in Decatur, like putting pre-Ks in our K-2s, like having the school board message aggressively with the city commission to draw attention back to City Schools of Decatur, which, by the way, have continued to thrive academically and are actually getting better. So, I would suggest that we all take a really hard and careful look at that data, ask ourselves whether we believe that those trends are truly long-term national trends, or if there's even a possibility of whether they were impacted by the pandemic in a meaningful way, and whether in response to that, we should abruptly close the school. Thank you.
So, I have here, we're going back in the
kid at Westchester Elementary, and I'm asking you to care about us enough to work hard and to make the best plan you can. That means now, none of our schools should be have to close. And if you do that for us, we will also work hard to make a difference in the world.
Hi, sorry to make everyone turn around. I'm Caroline, and we're about to have my third child since January 1st, 2020. So on Tuesday, which is why I'm not actually sitting down right now. I know this is a listening session, but I do feel like many of us have questions. And I just want to make sure that this is being recorded by the consulting room, because there are a lot of things that we just want to know. So, for example, Mr. Wilson, I know you've worked with so many school systems that have really been struggling with adding to Albany High School Authority. I think you helped with that one. I haven't yet seen a single high-performing, walkable, inclusive, diverse neighborhood school. In fact, Westchester, for example, which is where I went as a student, is our highest performing elementary school in the district. And I haven't yet seen a single school closure that you've supported that has met that criteria. And so I think we're trying to figure out the problem we're trying to solve here. So, and that we have modeled why. So if the problem is capital outlay and enrollment, it seems like there are a lot of solutions to that we've seen over the years. There's a bit of a myth that when Westchester was closed in 2004, so for context, we have 5,500 students now in our district, then we have 2,500. The entire school system budget was $38 million, which is not that much more than our central administration budget is today. And at the time, there was some enrollment, but it was mostly a pedagogical choice. They wanted to do lower elementary schools and upper elementary schools. And I really believe that the school districts, even as painful and horrible and as many lawsuits as there were in 2004 about this, that the school board really felt they were making the right decision by our children. And I think the question that many of us have is, what is the right decision by our children and by our teachers and by our neighborhood? Because closing a school is a nuclear option. It is literally the most disruptive thing that you can do to students and neighborhoods and to our teachers. Because as you see, Bernard is a polycycroc, who's a researcher. We have complex tax accountants from PwC who've done massive analyses to show the decades of recovery that it takes when you actually, on equity, on property values, and community trust, if you close a school. So if this is a nuclear option, I think the question many of us have is, what are all the options? The pre-K in the schools, the third grade back down. It used to be K through 3 and then it was K through 2. We have done this before, and it hasn't involved in the last 21 years closing school. So I think now that we have more money, and I also believe Mr. Wilson said in the August board retreat, we didn't need to close the school. We could afford not to. So I think all of us are a little bit confused as why the only thing that we can see is a capital outlay problem that seems solvable. So what is the problem we're trying to solve, and what are all the ways that we can solve it before we touch a school? One thing I would also say is it feels to us as parents like the burden of proof lies with the district. There's been a lot of parent conversation about prove to us why you don't need to close the school. That's actually, I don't think that's on us. I think we can do it. But I think the burden of proof is on the district to say yes. Like, why? I think that's what many of us are waiting for and haven't seen yet. And so that would be something I would really encourage the district to do, is to make the case. Because I think, again, if you don't know truly all of the solutions, this is the right one. And I think most of us will get behind a solution. And if we're in such dire straits that the only solution is this, we will figure it out as a community. We just haven't seen that yet. I don't think, or at least I haven't. And the last thing I would say is I think process and transparency matters as much as outcomes. I think there's been inconsistency in what's been reported, and I don't think we actually know the problem yet, or all of the data. And as nice as it is to then in a listening session before I go out of commission in 4 days, it is. I would love to have some of our questions answered. I would love if we get that feedback. And I know many of us have emailed the education planners and the board and others, and just haven't gotten any responses. And I think that's really hard because trust matters so much in this community. So with all of that, thanks for the listening session. Would love a Q&A and dialogue. Let's do it.
Well, thank you guys for letting us speak. And shout out to my alumni from Westchester. I'm too. I've got a son, kindergarten at Oak, and I'm actually one of the families that some people have spoken about that is one of these tuition payments. So I'm going to read my phone just to try to be quick. But I'd like to better understand the rationale behind last year's decision to open up out-of-district tuition families like mine. That decision came just last year before we're now considering closing an elementary school. With the City Schools of Decatur late announcement of redistricting, many families like mine are scrambling right now to quickly make decisions about options just in case we're left out. Since we're not guaranteed slots each year, which we all do, and I have not seen any additional information about our specific situations as out-of-district families. For example, school choice in DeKalb County, their initial lottery closes on Friday, so a lot of our families were left scrambling to apply. So from what I understand, nearly 70 students, elementary students, were enrolled from outside the district under this tuition program. So my questions are, what considerations are being made for families like mine? What are those students being allowed to continue their education in the City Schools of Decatur, or will they lose their place because of closures and consolidations? As a parent who made a commitment to pay tuition and invest in this community, I did so with a good faith, understanding that the district's invitation to build my family reflected a stable, thoughtful plan and an understanding of the importance of continuity of care, not a short-term stopgap. If the district chooses to close an elementary school and consolidate without consideration of families like mine, it raises a lot of serious concerns about planning, budgeting, and the trust that families, both in-district and out-of-district families, place in the system. So I'm asking for clarity on how these decisions connect. What is the plan for students and families already here? And how is the district intends to demonstrate consistent long-term care for the community that invited me in?
If they have nothing to do with, commercial and say, come to our school district, why is it that we can't do a commercial and say, come to our school district? Like, I don't- like she said, it's neutral. Like, that's crazy to think that this is the first option that we go with. Why not put all the energy and hire people, pay them to find other ways to keep the community open versus focusing on closing the school?
Hey y'all, thank y'all for being here. Big shout out to the teachers and principals who are here and those who aren't here. My name is Jonathan. My eldest son goes to Glenwood, and my 2-year-old and 3-year-old walk with him every morning to Glenwood and back every day. We love that community. We actually moved to the house that we live in now, specifically being in the Glenwood zone, so that the elementary is important to us. And I will keep this brief, but I just have 2 quick questions. The first is, I can't help but think about Buford High School. I know it's a very different context, different place, but they are on national TV because of the massive investments they've made in their football stadium. Decatur's a totally different place, but we have a gem of real estate with our high school being in downtown Decatur with access to MARTA. And I can't help but wonder what the revenue generating vision is for the district at large, including folks like y'all who pay to come. But other things, like what are we doing with our high school, for example, in the location that it has, the prime location it has, to help generate more revenue, offset some of the needs we have. So that's the first, and then the second is, and other folks have mentioned this, but it feels like we're sort of breaking into jail versus looking at other problems and or other solutions. Part of me can help wonder what other solutions there might be other than the nuclear option and closing a school. Thank you.
If you still have questions on what raise your hand, please. All right, anyone behind me have comments? All right, so guys, I want you to look around and also look at your time. We're from 6:30 to 8. So please love yourself accordingly. So, there's somebody over here that I was supposed to come back to first, I believe.
Hey, my name is Brother Lee. I'm a parent of a Westchester kindergartner and a hopefully future Westchester 3-year-old. We moved to this district because of the schools, because of Westchester. We loved how walkable it was for our house. And I just wanted to thank Ms. Wilson and everybody for finally sharing some data today and actually helping us see the problem, hopefully listening and seeing what we can do to fix it. I do think that one of the things, and I want to definitely call out that obviously the data has a lot of assumptions about trends continuing that just aren't consistent with what we're seeing on the ground. The data that we're seeing from local surveys and stuff. And I want to make sure that the district and all of y'all do the due diligence before immediately reaching for a nuclear option of actually making sure that this is going to continue the trend. But even if it does hold, I think a lot has been made from both speakers today about the 200 students number for capital outlay. That number is a state number that's based on a K-5 elementary, which we don't have. Obviously, we're not going to convince the state to change the number for Decatur, but there are things that we can do to get that number if we have to. If we're saying like, oh, you know what, our schools have half the number of grades that the state is saying we need 200 kids for, then okay, fine. If we want to continue that, then let's figure something out. I think we've ran the numbers. We moved 3rd grade down, moved 6th grade down, and every school hits the limit. Right now, with today's numbers, which are the lowest they're going to see, right? We've ran the numbers that you can, especially if you have pre-K, you're way over that number, right? That's an easy solution. Not even talking about it. And instead, it's strategic school closing, right? It just seems. I just want to state that is absolutely a nuclear option before you start talking about tuition, reconfiguration, literally anything else. The thing about Plan A, Plan B, I just want to make sure that why does Plan B require a decision to be made before the end of the school year to close a school? Why? If there's not an urgent need, and Mr. Wilson himself said in August, right, that we can afford to keep our schools. We just did renovations in Westchester, we just did renovations on Claremont. Like, what's the urgent need? Why do we have to close school right now? And sure, okay, we're delaying the process. We're delaying the process a few months, maybe. We're finally hearing about it. I just want to make sure that we really, really hit that we do the due diligence here, because this is something that will harm the city. If we close a school, it will harm this city. It will harm all of our futures, and it is a bad idea. So I think it's just important to think about.
A couple questions, comments to make. One, I'll go back to this timeline. So today does not count as one of 2 public hearings required by Georgia state law should there be a school that's closed. If the plan A, and we've never seen a plan, but if plan A is to stick with the plan A timeline, again, of a plan we've not seen, when would those 2 subsequent state required hearings take place? I think it's important not just to say that we might have plan A to stick with the original timeline, but to give solid dates for that. And if it's plan B, what would that be? When would the board decide on plan A or plan B of a plan that we've yet to see? The second comment is we talked about a lot of uncertainty. I've some parents that are tuition students and they don't know what to plan for next year. I know teachers don't necessarily feel comfortable speaking publicly. I spoke with a number of teachers who work in the district so their kids can attend schools in this district. We have amazing teachers and staff that are here so their schools can attend these schools. They think maybe they'll have a job if the school's closed. They're not sure. The special teachers are less sure. The administration certainly is less sure. They don't know where their kids are going to attend a school next year. That does a disservice to the teachers and staff at our schools that treat our kids so amazing. They deserve better. They need to have certainty on what their children's future might look like. The third thing I want to say is we're talking about capital outlays and financial impacts and declining enrollment, which may result in a financial impact, which is the reason we have to discuss the school closure. Westchester and Claremont Elementary have roughly a $3.5 million annual operating budget, of which approximately $2 million is instruction. So and if the teacher is going to be kept and moved to a different school, you're looking at $1.5 million in savings, less incremental costs for those students going to other schools, maintenance of the existing building. Let's say it's $1.5 million. That's about 1% of the annual operating budget for the district. I think we can find a solution that allows us to keep open an elementary school if the savings for closing it are 1% of the annual operating budget. We are a creative community. We talk about solutions that have to be different, so we should be closing the school.
Hey everybody, my name's Jess. I have 2 first graders at Westchester, both of whom are on IEPs. So I wanted to keep those kids in mind while we think about this too. But I do have some serious questions for the consultant hired by City Schools of Decatur to conduct the facilities and enrollment study, questions that all of the taxpayers in this room really deserve clear answers to. So first, we should know how much we paid the consultant, and is this the only data that they are relying on? Second, what exactly was the scope of the work? Were they asked to independently evaluate a range of options, or were they effectively hired to prove the why behind closing the school? Because if it was an assignment to justify a predetermined outcome, that is not an analysis, that is marketing. And that leads to my next question. Did the consultant create a problem that does not exist? Were they incentivized to paint a picture of a crisis and to make those numbers fit a narrative, rather than to tell the full, honest story of what is happening to our kids? If this school district had come to us and said, we have a problem, we have a crunch of a budget, we could have helped to come up with solutions. So we would like to see the full contract, the deliverables of the consultants so the public can determine whether this is truly an objective study or a paid exercise on confirmation bias. And as we ask these questions, we should not lose sight of who is affected the most. It is the teachers, it is the kids, and any recommendation that fails to account for their needs that aren't numbers is incomplete and inequitable.
Hi, I'm a parent of 3 children in the school district, and one of them has 504, one of them is at Westchester. And so I want to just make sure that the board and everyone considering this is also taking into account things like IEPs, 504s, which are federally protected accommodations for these kids. And unfortunately, though we've heard about lack of transparency tonight, I've experienced that even before this situation in that the Westchester nurse was transferred out of the school this year. And the parents weren't told that from the district. They weren't told she's moving to the high school. And there has not been a consistent nurse at Westchester since then. And the reason I raise this point is because I think it could be part of a slippery slope where the needs of the kids are not being served, and people are just finding out, or the students are disrupted in what they need every day at school, every day when they go to school. So my question to the board is, what are you doing to protect these accommodations and to ensure that if the school is closed or if there's any sort of disruption to what they know, that they're protected and that they're taken into account for?
Point of order, we cannot talk about any personnel in a community meeting. We cannot talk about personnel. So I get vacant positions, but we can't mention personnel. There's a point of order, that's all.
Alright, so as part for this basically, I'm actually a timer innovator. We've been here since 2002. I actually am looking around the room and really excited to see a few older, familiar faces who've gone through one round of consolidation that was pretty treacherous. As a 24-year-old newly married kid watching people go at each other at wine call. We were like, what have we done? Right? You're not kidding, this is insane. That process, as difficult as it was, took more than a year. So I'm going to bring this up a little bit. We're all talking about the data and where we are and how did we get here. The answer is this is so incredibly abnormal. I'm talking to our consultants here. I have done a lot of research on the projects that you are working on and the projects you have completed. A 8-week timeline, you guys don't do. Period. I have not been able to find it. I hope I'm wrong. I will email you tomorrow. Please prove me wrong. This is not a normal timeline. It's not a normal timeline for other districts across the Southeast and in Georgia. It's not a normal timeline for Decatur. The redistricting process, when we opened Tally, took more than 2 years of meetings. I know you are new, there's a lot of new faces in central office, but there's some who are not new, who have lived through this before. And they were a part of all of those beautiful conversations that we had before the consultants got engaged, during the engagement of the consultants, while you guys were working with us and you're putting sticky notes up on the walls at the high school. Regardless what the outcome ends up being, this is not the normal process. It is not the Decatur way of doing things. And that is why you have all of these questions and all of the emails and the 600 people saying this is not enough time. It's because it's not. It's not how it's ever been done. It is not how it should be. And when you're talking about a nuclear option first, you owe the community the Always ask for, receive, and live and deserve.
Hey, my name's Kyle. I was a fourth grader at Westchester 2004 when it closed the first time. And we're talking about nuclear option. I remember going to bed every night as a fifth grader. The next year after I changed schools, my sister who was in first grade when it was closed, and in second grade, she slept in my room, in my bed, almost every night the next school year, and cried herself to sleep. She was so upset. It's what happened to our school. I'm trying to choke up because, my sister knew my sister crying and sad. Anyways, so I really want to stress, I know the constituents of the students, I was a student here, I remember that, and how much it upset me, my family, my sister, many other families in my neighborhood at Westchester. If the only two options are status quo and close a school, I was in the Army at one point. If I brought two options like that to my boss, he told me to kick rocks, you're staying here at work until you figure out something else. Those aren't real options. I did a little bit of research while I was at work today. I'm an educator in high school, and I found that it's fairly unnormal to have K-2 schools, and the state of Georgia seems to think so, since you have to have at least third grade in elementary school, which is probably why third grade is with the fourth and fifth graders. But anyway, so if we rebanded our schools, and we did K through 3, 4 through 6, 7 and 8, and then 9 through 12. All right, so that sounds a little bit strange. But we should be able to hit all those numbers to get us funding. And also, if you did institute this, our current second graders would stay in place and just become third graders at their school. Our fifth graders would just stay in place and become sixth graders at their school. So the impact to our students would be fairly minimal in that transition year. I've also talked to some of the middle schoolers in my neighborhood. It seems I had heard a conversation just yesterday between the 6th and the 7th grader. And they were talking about how they never saw each other at school because our 6th graders are segregated from the 7th and 8th graders. So I don't see really the issue of moving these 6th graders with the 4th and 5th graders. 6th graders are in elementary schools all across this country, so it shouldn't be an issue. I know when I was in middle school, 8th graders towered over me as a 6th grader, and at some point I hit a growth spurt, now I tower over people. So anyways, I just would hope that we can explore many options, and only having two plans, A and B, seems inadequate, especially with the loaded central office budget that we do have in this district. If they get paid so much money, hopefully they can do some work and figure out problems.
My name's John Ridley. I live right behind here on Adams Street. I've been here 40 years, and the reason I came, both of my kids went through the Decatur schools, but I thought I might offer a couple of perspectives because I've been here a long time. And yes, I've seen a lot of things. And yes, you're right, this is not a normal process. There are two items I want to address very quickly, and we're running out of time. The first one is, I want to address the so-called studies that have been done. As to explain, I'm a third generation alum of Emory, and I did my graduate work at American University's College of Public Affairs and Policy Analysis. So this is the kind of thing that I was academically trained to do. I worked for the U.S. Congress, Library of Congress, Congressional Research Service as a GovOps policy analyst. I've also worked for the legislature as a tax policy analyst. Excuse me. I've also worked for Booz Allen, and I've worked for what is now PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I've seen a lot of public meetings over the last number of years, and with all due respect to the consultant, I think you should have thought more of your audience than what you brought. Teach this type of thing to students. I don't know that I could pass you in the class. Correlations are not causality. Ecological inference fallacies are abundant through this, going from the general to the specific. So methodologically, your study is, quite frankly, it's rubbish. The gentleman accurately pointed out that you did not consider anything other than a global trend as opposed to unique events that may have happened here or whatever. So from a methodological point of view, the Decatur residents should be better educated and more intelligent to accept this kind of architecture and have this is kind of thing, is the thing that's designed because somebody has a solution that they want to do, and then they go around and collect things that may support that. The average household income is $160,000. We're not a stupid electorate, okay? And I think the people of Decatur know better. And I would more than happy, Mr. Wisnett, if you're still here for Decatur's, I will dismember this study academically and methodologically, even though I have no bone to pick here. The second thing I want to say is that I'm one of those people who lost a homestead, senior homestead exemption, and over the last 40 years, I probably have paid, when I did the last open records request for all of my bills that I paid the city of Decatur over $250,000. So I think I have a right to say a couple things, okay? That's a lot of money. I've always been proud to be here, but that's a lot of money. The second thing I want to say to you is that this whole process is endemic of what is a serious problem in Decatur, is that the City of Decatur schools are not an independent school system. People want to say they are, but it's not. Legally, under the Georgia Constitution, it can't be. It can't levy directly on a de jure fact. It cannot do bonds. It cannot borrow money. It cannot levy millage. De jure. De facto, it has some leverage against the City Commission with a state statute, but technically it cannot be an independent system. So what we have here is a populace that's being torn apart by two local entities, one which is a subdivision of the other, because the city is the legal authority here. The school board is in the charter. It's not a separate entity. It's not like the City of Atlanta School Board or DeKalb County. The city schools are part of Decatur, and part of their job is, and I have a question to ask. Why do we have two groups to mow the lawn? We're a town of 25,000 people. It seems to me the city should take up its responsibility for things like providing adequate facilities for the school and let the school board pay attention to educational issues, not facilities issues. That's what we have. They take care of parks, they take care of right-of-ways, they take care of all kinds. That's what the city does. Why is the school board out? And then they want to make decisions. And if you look at over the last 40 years that I've been here, a lot of these facilities decisions made by the city haven't worked out so well. Go down and see if you can fit the population of the school and the gym that was built. You couldn't even, the day it was obsolete, the day it was implemented. So really, those are the two things. And so the city charter needs to get fixed, y'all, and they're talking about that now. But we need to clean the situation up, and we're dealing with a form of government where there's no accountability. Where are the elected representatives in this room? Where is the city? Decatur needs accountability, and if y'all are willing to do accountability, I might even consider staying here a little while.
And then,
Hello, I'm Tiffany Rice. I am one of the staff members at Westchester Elementary. I'm the general music teacher there. I'm also the orchestra teacher for Tally and Faye. So I travel around the city, and I know CSD. Last year, a few months ago, all K-2 schools, we lost all of our assistant principals. We lost our assistant principal. I can't say her name, but a lot of you know who that is. She was amazing. The kids loved her. The staff loves her. We were told it was because of budgetary issues, and she was going to go somewhere else in CSD and do another job. Where is she now? She's in Atlanta Public Schools. We lost an amazing staff member because we were told budgetary issues will move people around. What will happen to our students with families who have the money to go somewhere else? and you tell them they're gonna be moved around. They're gonna go to they're gonna go to private schools. There's amazing private schools in this area, and we know that. So when we think that we're going to have, oh, we're just gonna move people around and everything will be great, that angers a lot of people. It hurts a lot of people, and people find other options. I know CSD is an amazing place. At the beginning of every school year, all of the staff members come together and we cheer on everyone who's been working here for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, up to 30 years. CSD retains teachers like no other place. Whenever I tell someone I work for CSD, teachers at other districts, families everywhere, oh, CSD is so amazing, it's amazing. We have a reputation of being an amazing place. So even though there's a national average of schools declining, and that's a fact, it's declining all over the place. CSD is amazing. We have the test scores to prove it. Our superintendent sat down every teacher and talked to us about our amazing test scores. We have the academics, we have the teachers, we retain our staff. We can increase when other places around us are decreasing, because we still have that reputation of being an amazing place. And it's true, it is decreasing, so we're not going to pretend like it's not all over. But if we were to advertise and tell them the amazing things that are happening here, all over DeKalb County and the surrounding areas, we can have the numbers, and we can keep all of our schools open.
Comment for the night. Next time we remember, we cannot invade on someone's privacy, whether they work for the school district or no longer work for the district. We cannot talk about personal data.
This lady.
All right. So he sits over there. Would y'all say this lady?
Emily.
Yes, Emily, she's gonna close us out for tonight. Before Emily speaks, let me say this. We came here tonight to do what? We're from a lot of you all. You guys, you should give yourself a pat on the back. You spoke well, you gave us a lot to think about. You gave us a lot to work through. But know this is what community is all about. We're able to come in, we're able to have a hard conversation. We're able to get some thoughts out, some emotions are flaring, and that's okay. Because this is about kids. And you should have some emotion when you're talking about kids. And we expected that, and we're okay with that. But for all of you all that spoke, I want to say thank you for giving us your ideas, trusting us with your ideas. It's not always easy to get up and speak in front of an audience and think that you're going to get your point across. So I really appreciate you all for doing that. I thank you all for listening to your community members. Making this a platform for everyone to come up and speak. For everyone who did not get to speak, please utilize the QR code. It is an effective communication tool. And I'm gonna let Ms. Emily close us out for tonight. She's gonna sing a little song at the end.
Thank you. I'm honored, really. Thank you. I am a parent here in CSD. I have 3 kids in the school system, one at Westchester in 1st grade, one in 4th grade at Faith, and one here in 7th grade. I moved into the school system in 2013 when Westchester was closed. We were super excited to be walking to Oakhurst. And then before my now oldest started kindergarten, we were removed from the Oakhurst district and moved to Westchester. There was a big uproar, it was very upsetting. We thought we moved into a walkable district, and then it turned out not to be. And we love Westchester. We've been there for 8 years, and it's been an amazing experience. What I'm hearing from all of us is that we are flexible, we want to consider what's most effective for our families and our children, and we are smart, capable people available to help out in making these decisions. As a professional, I'm a
psychotherapist, so I'm considering our experience interpersonally, both individually as we speak to each other and care about each other, but also our group dynamic. And what I've been most concerned about for years is this undercurrent of distrust between the administration and the community. Unless there's something wrong going on, I don't see why we should be distrusting each other. We should be receiving all of the data that we need. It should be clear, explicit, and honest. We should be able to hear from each other, have questions and answers forums, in addition to listening sessions, and we should all feel like we're a part of the process. I hope there's no bad guys in this community. I mean, we all want what's best. I hope that everyone is hearing, though, that people are not feeling that way. That people are not feeling, not just that we disagree on the data or disagree on the choices, but that we don't trust each other. And I find it hard to believe we're going to be able to move forward until we repair that rupture. I think there have been a lot of and that's my greatest hope for us as the community. I don't know the right answer. I don't know how to analyze all of that data. I want to be able to trust that the people that do know are going to guide us in the right direction.
Everyone, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful experience. Expect a response on what's next sometime tomorrow. Have a good night.